The police officer's laughter echoed across the backyard as Karen stood there, soaking wet, clutching a fake deed she'd printed at home. What started as a simple Saturday morning swim had exploded into a neighborhood war that would expose secrets, shatter reputations, and prove that sometimes the most entitled people fall the hardest. But Marcus had no idea that Karen's desperate claim to his pool was just the beginning of a Marcus Williams had been looking forward to this Saturday morning for weeks. The August heat was already climbing toward triple digits by 9 a.m., and the crystal-clear water of his backyard pool sparkled like a private oasis. He'd worked double shifts at the hospital for 3 months straight to afford the pool installation, and now, finally, he could enjoy the fruits of his labor. He slipped into the cool water with a satisfied sigh, feeling the tension melt from his shoulders. The sound of the filter humming and birds chirping in the oak trees created a perfect symphony of suburban peace. This was exactly what he'd dreamed of when he bought the house in Willowbrook Estates 6 months ago. That peace shattered like glass when Karen Pemberton's shrill voice cut through the morning air. "Excuse me, excuse me." Marcus opened his eyes to see a woman in her 50s marching around the side of his house, her perfectly coiffed blonde hair bouncing with each aggressive step. She wore a crisp white polo shirt with HOA board member embroidered in gold thread, and her face was already flushed red with indignation. "Can I help you?" Marcus called out, staying in the water but moving toward the pool's edge. Karen planted herself at the gate to his backyard, hands on her hips. "You most certainly can help me. I'm Karen Pemberton, Vice President of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association, and I need to discuss this unauthorized swimming pool immediately." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the water. "Unauthorized? I have all the permits. The city inspector signed off on everything last month. City permits are irrelevant," Karen snapped, pulling out her phone and taking pictures of the pool. "This installation violates multiple HOA covenants. Section 4.2 clearly states that all recreational additions require board approval before construction begins." "I submitted the paperwork to the HOA 3 months ago," Marcus said, climbing out of the pool and reaching for his towel. "I never heard back, so I assumed it was approved." Karen's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Oh, how convenient. No response means approval. That's not how this works, Mr. Williams. Silence doesn't equal consent. Look, I can show you the certified mail receipt." "I don't care about your receipts," Karen interrupted, stepping closer to the pool. "What I care about is the fact that you've installed a major recreational facility without proper authorization. Do you have any idea how this affects property values? How it impacts our carefully maintained community standards?" Marcus wrapped the towel around his waist, trying to keep his voice calm. "Mrs. Pemberton, I followed every rule I was given. If there was a miscommunication, I'm happy to work with the board to resolve it, but the pool is already installed and fully functional." "Oh, it's functional all right," Karen said, her eyes gleaming with something that made Marcus deeply uncomfortable. "In fact, it's so functional that I think it would serve the entire community beautifully." "I'm sorry, what?" Karen pulled a folder from her oversized purse and flipped it open with theatrical flourish. "According to HOA bylaws, any unauthorized improvements that enhance community value can be claimed as common property if the owner fails to comply with association standards." Marcus stared at her, certain he'd misheard. "Are you saying you want to take my pool?" "I'm saying the pool you illegally installed on property governed by HOA regulations is now subject to community oversight. The board will be meeting Monday evening to discuss converting this space into a community recreational area." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "This is my backyard, my private property, your private property that's subject to the Willowbrook Estates covenant conditions and restrictions," Karen said, waving the folder, "which you signed when you purchased your home." "Did you read the fine print, Mr. Williams?" Marcus had read the HOA documents, but they'd been dense legal language that seemed standard for suburban developments. He'd focused on the major restrictions: loud parties, maintain your lawn, keep your house painted neutral colors, nothing about the HOA being able to seize private improvements. "Even if that were true," Marcus said, "you can't just decide that on your own. Don't you need a board vote, community input?" Karen's smile was predatory. "Oh, there will be a board vote. Monday night, 7 o'clock. You're welcome to attend and present your case." She snapped the folder shut, Though I should mention that 4 of the 5 board members have already expressed concern about your cavalier attitude toward community standards. Cavalier attitude? I installed a pool in my own backyard. Without permission, Karen reminded him, and with a complete disregard for how your actions affect your neighbors. What neighbors? Marcus gestured around his property. The Hendersons on the left love the pool their kids have been asking when they can swim. The Johnsons on the right said it looks great. Who exactly is complaining? Karen's expression flickered for just a moment, but she quickly recovered. The complaints have been ... numerous. Privacy concerns, noise issues, potential safety liability. For the entire community, noise issues. It's a pool, not a construction site. Children splashing, pool equipment running at all hours. Late-night parties? I've never had a party here, Marcus interrupted. I work nights at the hospital. I'm barely home most evenings. Well, Karen said, her voice taking on a syrupy sweetness that somehow made it more menacing, that actually supports our position perfectly. If you're never home to use this expensive amenity, it makes perfect sense for the community to take it over. We can ensure it gets proper use and maintenance. Marcus felt like he was in some kind of surreal nightmare. You want to steal my pool because I work too much. Nobody's stealing anything, Karen said primly. We're simply enforcing community standards and maximizing the utility of neighborhood resources. It's what good neighbors do. Good neighbors don't try to take over each other's property. Good neighbors don't install major improvements without following proper procedures, Karen shot back. Actions have consequences, Mr. Williams. You chose to ignore HOA protocols. Now you get to live with the results. She turned to leave, then paused at the gate. Oh, and you might want to avoid using the pool until this matter is resolved. Liability issues, you understand. If someone got hurt while the property status is in dispute, well, ... double quotes, she shrugged. Let's just say you're homeowners. Insurance might not cover it. You can't ban me from my own pool. I'm not banning you from anything, Karen said sweetly. I'm simply advising you of potential legal complications. Use your best judgment. She walked away, leaving Marcus standing dripping beside his own pool, feeling like a stranger in his own backyard. For several minutes, he just stood there, trying to process what had just happened. Then he went inside and started making phone calls. The first call was to his real estate agent, Jennifer Park, who'd sold him the house. Marcus, how's the new place treating you? That's actually why I'm calling. Can the HOA really claim my pool as community property? There was a long pause. What exactly happened? Marcus told her about Karen's visit, and he could practically hear Jennifer's frown through the phone. That doesn't sound right, she said finally. I mean, HOAs have broad powers, but seizing private improvements, that's pretty extreme. Do you have copies of all your HOA paperwork? Everything's in my filing cabinet? Jennifer, when I submitted the pool application, did you get any feedback from the HOA? Another pause. You know what? Let me dig into my files and get back to you. This is definitely not normal. The second call was to his lawyer, David Chen, who'd handled the house purchase. Karen Pemberton, David mused. I know that name. She's been involved in several HOA disputes over the years, usually on the aggressive side. So this is something she's done before. Similar tactics, different properties. She's very good at using HOA rules as weapons. But Marcus, the thing you need to understand is that even if she's technically within her rights, enforcement is a whole different matter. HOA powers aren't unlimited. What should I do? Document everything, keep records of all interactions with her and the board, and definitely attend that meeting Monday night. Don't let them make decisions about your property without you there. The third call was to his neighbor, Bill Henderson, whose kids had indeed been asking about swimming. Are you kidding me? Bill's voice was incredulous. Karen wants to take over your pool. That woman is absolutely insane. She claims there have been complaints about noise and privacy. From who? Susan and I love having the pool next door. It's like having a resort view from our deck, and our kids are so well behaved around it, they haven't even asked to come over yet because they want to respect your space. What do you know about Karen Pemberton? Bill's laugh was bitter. Oh man, where do I start? She's the reason 3 families have moved out of this neighborhood in the past 2 years. She finds violations everywhere. Your grass is too long. Marcus didn't sleep the rest of Saturday night. He spent the hours until dawn researching emergency injunctions, HOA law, and Karen Pemberton herself. What he found in the depths of social media and public records painted a picture of a woman who had turned neighborhood harassment into an art form. The Willowbrook Estates Facebook group was a goldmine of complaints dating back 3 years. Karen had filed noise violations against the Patel family's Diwali celebration, claiming their ethnic music disturbed the peace. She'd forced the elderly Kowalski couple to remove their rose garden because the bushes extended 18 inches into the setback zone. Most damning of all, she'd orchestrated the removal of a young family's playground equipment, claiming it violated aesthetic standards, only to have identical equipment installed in her own backyard 2 months later. By 6 a.m., Marcus had compiled a thick folder of evidence showing Karen's pattern of weaponizing HOA rules for personal gain. More importantly, he'd found something Karen apparently didn't know he could access: the HOA's own meeting minutes going back 5 years. Posted on the community website that required a login most residents never bothered to use. The pattern was clear. Karen would identify properties with improvements she wanted, find technical violations of HOA rules, and then pressure families until they either moved away or surrendered their investments. The playground family had lasted only 4 months. Before selling their house at a loss, the Patels had fought for over a year before finally relocating to a different neighborhood. But Marcus also found something else in those meeting minutes. Board member Patricia Chen had repeatedly voted against Karen's more aggressive enforcement actions. Another board member, Robert Hayes, had resigned in protest last year, writing a scathing letter about abuse of authority for personal enrichment. Most interesting of all, Marcus discovered that the community management company had been replaced twice in the past 3 years, both times after complaints about irregular procedures and unauthorized actions taken without proper board approval. By Monday morning, Marcus had a plan. His first stop was the office of David Chen, his attorney, who happened to be Patricia Chen's husband, a connection Marcus had discovered during his weekend research marathon. "Patricia told me about Karen's latest scheme," David said, shaking his head as he reviewed the injunction paperwork that had finally been served to Marcus on Sunday evening. "This woman has absolutely no shame. Can she really do this? Legally, it's a gray area. The injunction is technically valid, but it's based on some pretty creative interpretation of HOA powers." David spread the documents across his desk. "The good news is that emergency injunctions are temporary. The bad news is that she's scheduled a hearing for Friday afternoon, which doesn't give us much time to prepare." "What about the board meeting tonight?" "That's actually where this could get interesting," David said, leaning back in his chair. "See, Karen filed this injunction as an individual board member, claiming to act on behalf of the association. But, according to the HOA bylaws, major legal actions require a full board vote." Marcus felt a spark of hope. "So she acted without authority. Potentially, if we can show that the other board members didn't authorize this action, the injunction could be invalidated." David pulled out his phone. "Let me call Patricia and see what she knows about tonight's meeting." While David made his call, Marcus reviewed the formal notice he'd received about the pool conversion proposal. The language was carefully crafted to make it sound like a done deal: discussion and approval of community recreation area conversion for 847 Maple Drive. Not consideration or evaluation. Approval. "Interesting," David said, hanging up his phone. "Patricia says she never voted to authorize any legal action against you. In fact, she says there was never any formal discussion about your pool at all. Karen has been telling the other board members that you agreed to convert it voluntarily. She told them, I agreed." According to Patricia, Karen claimed you approached her about donating the pool to the community as a goodwill gesture, and that tonight's meeting was just to formalize the paperwork. Marcus felt his anger transform into something colder and more focused. Karen wasn't just stealing his pool, she was lying to her own board members to cover her tracks. "David, what happens if I can prove Karen has been acting without board authorization? If she filed legal documents claiming to represent the HOA without proper authority, that could be fraud with real consequences." Marcus spent the rest of Monday preparing for battle. He printed copies of every document he'd found. Over the weekend, organized them into neat folders, and prepared a presentation that would expose Karen's lies to the entire community. But he also made another discovery that afternoon, one that changed everything. While researching property records online, Marcus stumbled across something that made his blood run cold. Karen Pemberton didn't just live in Willowbrook Estates. She owned 4 properties in the neighborhood, all purchased at below-market prices from families who had been forced out by HOA violations. The Playground family's house had been bought by an LLC called Pemberton Holdings just 2 weeks after they moved out. The Patel's former home was now a rental property managed by the same company. Karen wasn't just harassing neighbors for fun, she was running a systematic scheme to acquire properties by making life unbearable for the owners. And according to the property records, she'd been eyeing Marcus's house since before he'd even bought it. There were notes in the county database indicating that Pemberton Holdings had submitted a bid on his property that was rejected in favor of Marcus's offer. Karen hadn't stumbled across his pool and decided to claim it. She'd been planning to take his entire property from the moment he'd moved in. By 6:30 p.m., the Willowbrook Estates Community Center was packed with more residents than had attended a board meeting in years. Word had spread about the pool dispute, and the neighborhood was divided between those who supported Karen's enforcement of HOA rules and those who thought she'd finally gone too far. Marcus arrived early and set up his materials at a table near the front. He'd dressed in his best suit and brought multiple copies of every document he'd discovered. This wasn't just about his pool anymore, it was about exposing a predator who had been systematically destroying their community. Karen arrived at exactly 7 p.m., flanked by 2 board members Marcus didn't recognize. She wore a navy blue blazer, with her HOA pin prominently displayed, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never lost a public confrontation. "Good evening, everyone," Karen called out, taking her seat at the head table. "Thank you all for coming to tonight's meeting. We have several important items to discuss, but I know most of you are here about the situation at 847 Maple Drive." She opened her folder and smiled at the crowd. "Before we begin, I want to assure everyone that the board's primary concern is maintaining the property values and community standards that make Willowbrook Estates such a desirable place to live." "That's interesting," Marcus said, standing up from his seat, "because I've been reviewing the board meeting minutes, and I can't find any record of the board discussing my property at all." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Karen's smile flickered. "Slightly, Mr. Williams. There will be time for public comment after the board presents the facts of the situation." "The facts," Marcus repeated, opening his first folder. "Let's talk about facts. Fact number 1. I submitted my pool application to the HOA 93 days ago. According to the association's own policies, applications are automatically approved after 60 days with no response." He held up the email from the management company. "This document, provided by my real estate agent, confirms that policy." Karen's face was beginning to redden. That policy was changed when Marcus interrupted. "Because I have copies of every board meeting minute going back 5 years, and I don't see any record of that policy being changed. In fact, I don't see any record of the board meeting to discuss my pool application at all." Patricia Chen, sitting at the board table, spoke up. "That's because there was no meeting about Mr. Williams's pool. Karen told us he had volunteered to donate it to the community." The room erupted in surprised voices. Karen shot Patricia. "Look, that could have melted steel. There seems to be some confusion," Karen began. "The only confusion," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly over the noise, "is how you filed a legal injunction claiming to represent this board without any board authorization." He pulled out the injunction paperwork. "This document claims that the Willowbrook Estates HOA Board of Directors authorized emergency legal action. But, according to board member Patricia Chen, there was never any vote to authorize legal action at all." Karen stood up abruptly. "Mr. Williams, you are out of order. The board has procedures." "The board has procedures," Marcus agreed, "but you haven't been following them." He opened his second folder. "Let's talk about your procedures, Mrs. Pemberton. Let's talk about the Patel family, who were forced to sell their home after you filed 17 noise violations against them in 6 months. He held up a stack of papers. 17 violations, all filed by you personally for things like excessive cooking odors and non-English conversations in the backyard. The same family. Marcus should have known Karen wouldn't go quietly. The first sign of trouble came Tuesday morning when he found his mailbox stuffed with official-looking documents. Code violation notices from the city. A letter from the IRS requesting documentation for a tax audit investigation, all dated Monday nights, within hours of the board meeting. The second sign came when he tried to leave for work and found his car wouldn't start. The hood was unlatched, and someone had disconnected his battery cables and loosened his alternator belt. Amateur sabotage, but effective enough to make him 2 hours late for his hospital shift. The third sign was the most disturbing. A text message from an unknown number at 11:47 p.m., the exact time Karen had been swimming in his pool. Beautiful night for a swim. Too bad your pool water looks a little cloudy. Might want to test those chemical levels. Wouldn't want anyone to get sick. A concerned neighbor Marcus threw on clothes and ran to his backyard, flashlight in hand. The pool water that had been crystal clear that morning now had a distinctly greenish tint, and there was a chemical smell that definitely wasn't chlorine. He called the pool service company's emergency line, but they couldn't come out until Wednesday. He called David Chen, but it went straight to voicemail. Finally, he called the police non-emergency line. "Sir, unless you have proof that someone tampered with your pool, this would be a civil matter," the dispatcher told him. "You could file a report, but without witnesses or evidence." Marcus spent the rest of the night collecting water samples and taking photos, documenting everything he could think of. But he knew the police were right. He had no proof that Karen was behind any of it. Wednesday brought fresh horrors. The city code enforcement officer who showed up to investigate the violations was apologetic but thorough. Someone had filed complaints about improper electrical work, unpermitted structural changes, and potential zoning violations, all of which required expensive inspections to disprove. "I'm sorry, Mr. Williams," Inspector Rodriguez said, "but when we receive complaints, we have to investigate, even if they seem frivolous." Who filed the complaints? The reports are anonymous, but they're very detailed. Whoever submitted them knows a lot about construction codes. The IRS letter turned out to be legitimate. Someone had filed a tip, claiming Marcus was underreporting income from his hospital job. The insurance review was triggered by a neighbor's complaint about safety hazards that could impact liability coverage for the entire neighborhood. By Wednesday evening, Marcus was facing thousands of dollars in inspection fees, accounting costs, and potential legal bills. More importantly, the stress was affecting his work. He'd made 2 minor medication errors during his shift to nothing. Dangerous, but enough to earn a concerned conversation with his supervisor. "Marcus, I know you're dealing with some personal issues," Dr. Sarah Kim said, "but you can't let them follow you into the hospital. Patients' lives depend on your focus. I understand. It won't happen again. Take tomorrow off. Get your head straight. We need you at your best." That evening, Marcus sat in his living room with David Chen, reviewing the mounting pile of harassment. "This is escalation," David said grimly. "So what do I do?" "Document everything. Keep detailed records of every incident, every expense, every impact on your daily life. We're building a harassment case. What about criminal charges for the pool tampering? Without proof, it's hard to prosecute. But if we can establish a pattern of behavior..." "Marcus, have you considered that she might not be working alone?" "What do you mean? Think about it. She filed multiple anonymous complaints with different city departments within hours of the board meeting. She had detailed knowledge of construction codes. Someone disconnected your car battery without being seen by any neighbors. This feels coordinated." Marcus felt a chill. "You think she has help?" "I think Karen Pemberton has been running this scheme for years, and she's probably developed a network of people who help her target properties. The question is, who and how far they're willing to go." They got their answer Thursday morning. Marcus woke up to find graffiti spray-painted across his garage door, "Community Thief," in large red letters. But it was what he found in his backyard that made his blood run cold. Someone had dumped dozens of dead fish into his pool. The smell was overwhelming, and the sight was nauseating. Hundreds of small fish floating belly up in water that was now a sickly brown color. It would cost thousands to drain, clean, and refill the pool, assuming the liner wasn't permanently damaged. This time, Marcus called 911. Officers Martinez and Thompson responded, the same officers who had been to his house Saturday night. But their attitude was very different now. "This is definitely vandalism," Officer Martinez said, taking photos of the graffiti in the pool. And depending on what kind of chemicals were used to contaminate the water, it could be considered poisoning or environmental damage. Any idea who might have done this? Officer Thompson asked. Marcus hesitated. He knew exactly who was behind it, but he also knew what would happen if he made accusations without proof. "I've been having a dispute with a neighbor," he said carefully. "It's been escalating." "Karen Pemberton?" Officer Martinez asked. Marcus looked surprised. "How did you?" "We've had 3 other calls this week about harassment and property damage in this neighborhood," Officer Thompson explained, "all involving people who opposed Mrs. Pemberton at Monday night's board meeting. Other people are being targeted. The Hendersons had their lawn sprinkler system vandalized Tuesday night. Patricia Chen found her car tires slashed yesterday morning, and someone filed a false report claiming Tom Rodriguez was running an illegal business from his home." Officer Martinez closed his notepad. "Mr. Williams, we're going to treat this as part of a larger pattern of criminal harassment. We'll be increasing patrols in this neighborhood, and we're opening an investigation into Mrs. Pemberton's activities." For the first time since Saturday, Marcus felt like someone in authority was taking the situation seriously. "I do in the meantime. Document everything, avoid confrontation, and call us immediately if anything else happens. And, Mr. Williams, you might want to consider security cameras." After the police left, Marcus spent the afternoon installing a comprehensive security system around his property. For cameras covering every angle of his house and backyard, motion sensors, and a recording system that uploaded everything to cloud storage in real time. He was just finishing the installation when his doorbell rang. Through the peephole, he saw Patricia Chen standing on his porch, holding a casserole dish and looking nervous. "Patricia, come in. How are you holding up?" "Better than you, apparently," she said, glancing at the pool through his sliding glass door. "I heard about the fish." "I'm so sorry," the police said. "You had trouble too." Patricia's face darkened. "Someone slashed all 4 of my tires Monday night after the meeting. But that's not why I'm here." She set down the casserole and pulled out her phone. "I've been getting phone calls." "What kind of calls?" "Threatening ones. Someone calls every few hours and tells me I'd better resign from the board, or my family will face consequences. The voice is disguised, but I'm pretty sure it's Karen." Marcus felt sick. "Patricia, you should go to the police." "I did. They're tapping my phone starting tomorrow." "But Marcus, there's something else you need to know." She lowered her voice. "I've been asking around about the other families who sold their houses to Pemberton Holdings. They all received escalating harassment before they moved. Property damage, false complaints, threatening phone calls. But here's the scary part, 2 of them said the harassment didn't stop when they put their houses on the market." "What do you mean?" "The Patels had 3 different buyers back out at the last minute due to newly discovered problems with the property. Problems that mysteriously disappeared when Pemberton Holdings made their offer. The Morrisons went through the same thing." Marcus sat down heavily. "She sabotaged their sales to other buyers." "It looks that way. She creates problems that scare off legitimate buyers, then swoops in with a lowball cash offer to take the property off their hands despite the issues. That's fraud. That's conspiracy." That's what we're dealing with," Patricia interrupted. "Marcus, I don't think this is just about your pool anymore. I think she's decided to make an example of everyone who opposed her at that meeting." As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He put it on speaker. "Hello, Marcus Williams." The voice was electronically distorted, but the tone was unmistakably female. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to help you avoid making a terrible mistake." Patricia grabbed Marcus's arm, her eyes wide. "You had your moment of glory Monday night," the voice continued. "You got your little revenge, but this can all go away very easily. What do you want? Put your house on the market. Accept the first reasonable offer you receive. Move somewhere else. Forget this ever happened, and if I don't..." The laugh was cold and mechanical. "Have you checked your credit?" The police took the threatening phone call seriously, but Detective Rachel Santos was blunt about their limitations. "We can trace the call, but voice distorters are easy to get. And she's probably using burner phones," Detective Santos explained. Friday morning, as she reviewed Marcus's growing file, "What we need is concrete evidence linking Karen Pemberton to specific crimes." "What about Dr. Martinez? Can't you investigate what happened to her?" "We tried. Dr. Martinez moved to Oregon. After her life fell apart here, she won't talk to Ustu, traumatized by the whole experience. Without her cooperation, we can't prove Karen was involved. Marcus felt helpless, so she just gets away with it. Not necessarily. Detective Santos leaned forward. Mr. Williams, I'm going to be honest with you. We've been watching Mrs. Pemberton for over a year. She's careful, she's smart, and she's been getting away with this because her victims usually just leave town rather than fight back. But I'm not leaving. No, you might, and that's why you might be the key to stopping her. Detective Santos opened a thick folder. Are you willing to help us build a case? What kind of help? Let her come after you. Document everything. Let us wire your house, monitor your communications, be the bait that finally gets her to make a mistake. Marcus stared at her. You want me to let her destroy my life so you can catch her? I want you to let her try to destroy your life while we're watching every move she makes. There's a difference. It was a terrifying proposition, but Marcus realized he didn't have much choice. Karen had already made it clear she wouldn't stop until he was gone. At least this way, he'd have the police as backup. What do I need to do? Over the weekend, Detective Santos's team transformed Marcus's house into a surveillance operation. Hidden cameras in every room, recording devices in all his phones, and undercover officers posing as utility workers keeping watch on the neighborhood. They also arranged for Marcus to have a police liaison at the hospital, someone who could verify his activities and protect him from false allegations about his work performance. Remember, Detective Santos briefed him Sunday evening, act normal, go to work, come home, live your life. Let Karen make the next move. The next move came Monday morning, but not in the way anyone expected. Marcus arrived at work to find his supervisor, Dr. Kim, waiting for him with a grim expression. Marcus, we need to talk. Someone called the medical board over the weekend claiming you've been stealing medication. Marcus's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. What kind of medication? Opioids. Specifically, they claim you've been taking fentanyl patches meant for patients and selling them. That's completely false. I know it's false, Dr. Kim interrupted, but the board has to investigate any allegations involving controlled substances. You're suspended pending the investigation. Marcus felt the world tilting. For how long? Could be weeks, maybe months. Dr. Kim looked genuinely pained. Marcus, I'm sorry. I know this is connected to your neighborhood situation, but my hands are tied. The suspension meant Marcus would be home during the day exactly when Karen would expect him to be at work. It was almost like she'd planned it that way. He drove home feeling defeated, but as he pulled into his driveway, he noticed something odd. The Hendersons' house next door had a for sale sign in the front yard. He found Bill Henderson in his backyard, throwing kids' toys into boxes with angry, frustrated movements. Bill, what's going on? Bill looked up with exhausted eyes. We're done, Marcus. We can't take it anymore. What happened? What didn't happen? Bill's laugh was bitter. Our sprinkler system got vandalized twice more this week. Someone called Child Protective Services claiming we were neglecting our kids. The city red-tagged our garage, saying it was built without permits we've had for 8 years. Marcus felt sick. This is because you supported me at the board meeting. Yeah? Well, supporting you has cost us about $15,000 in the past week. Our kids are scared to play in their own backyard. Susan's having panic attacks. Bill threw a soccer ball into a box with unnecessary force. We can't fight someone who has unlimited time and resources to make our lives hell. Where will you go? Susan's sister lives in Phoenix. We'll stay there until we can find something permanent. Bill paused. Marcus, you should consider leaving too. This woman is dangerous. But Marcus couldn't leave. Not now that he was working with the police to stop her. That afternoon, while reviewing security footage with Detective Santos, they made a disturbing discovery. The cameras had captured someone approaching Marcus's house at 3 a.m. Tuesday morning. Not Karen, but a man in dark clothing who seemed to know exactly where the cameras were positioned. He's avoiding the motion sensors, Detective Santos noted. Look how he moves. He knows exactly where our blind spots are. How is that possible? Either he's done surveillance on your house before, or someone told him where our equipment is located. Detective Santos's face was grim. We may have a leak. The revelation that Karen might have inside information about the police investigation changed everything. Detective Santos pulled back most of her surveillance team and switched to a smaller, more secure operation. But it was too late. Karen had already seen their hand. Tuesday evening, Marcus got another distorted phone call. "You really thought you could outsmart me with your little police friends?" Marcus grabbed his phone, knowing the call was being recorded. "What do you want, Karen? I want you to understand something very clearly. I have friends in places you can't imagine. The police, the medical board, the city government, the courts. You're not fighting just me, you're fighting a system." "What system?" "The system that keeps property values high and undesirable elements out of good neighborhoods. The system that rewards people who understand how things really work." "You mean corruption?" "I mean reality. Do you know how many doctors, lawyers, and judges live in developments like this? Do you know how many of them have made their fortunes by buying and selling real estate?" Marcus felt a chill of understanding. "You're not working alone. I'm part of a network, Marcus, a very profitable network. We identify properties with potential. We remove obstacles to acquiring those properties, and we all benefit from the results by destroying people's lives, by cleaning up neighborhoods, by maintaining standards, by ensuring that property investments are protected." Her voice was cold now, businesslike. "Dr. Martinez didn't understand that either. She thought she could fight us. What happened to her? She learned that some battles can't be won, just like you're about to learn." The line went dead, leaving Marcus staring at his phone in horror. He immediately called Detective Santos, but she was equally disturbed by the implications. "If she's telling the truth about having connections in law enforcement and government, this is much bigger than we thought," Detective Santos said. "We need to be very careful who we trust." Wednesday brought confirmation of Karen's claims. The medical board investigation into Marcus's alleged drug theft was being fast-tracked by board member Dr. Richard Pemberton Karen's brother. As it turned out, the city inspector who had red-tagged the Hendersons' garage was the same inspector who had found violations at Marcus's house, despite previous inspections showing no problems. Even worse, Marcus discovered that the judge assigned to Karen's original injunction case, the one that had given her access to his pool, was Judge Patricia Pemberton, Karen's sister-in-law. "It's a family business," Detective Santos said grimly. When Marcus shared his findings, Karen's the front person, but she's got relatives positioned throughout the system to make her schemes work. So how do we stop her? We need evidence that can't be suppressed or dismissed by her family connections. We need something so clear and documented that even corrupt officials can't ignore it. That evidence came from an unexpected source. Thursday afternoon, Marcus got a knock on his door from a young woman he didn't recognize. "Mr. Williams, my name is Sarah Kowalski. I think you knew my grandparents." Marcus remembered the elderly couple who had been forced to remove their rose garden. "Sarah, I'm so sorry about what happened to them. That's why I'm here." Sarah's eyes were bright with anger. "My grandmother saved everything, every letter, every violation notice, every recording of her phone calls with Karen Pemberton." She handed Marcus a thick envelope. "Grandma died 6 months ago, but before she passed, she made me promise to find someone who would use this information to stop Karen." Marcus opened the envelope and found dozens of documents, photos, and even cassette recordings of phone conversations. "There's more," Sarah continued. "Grandma hired a private investigator before she died. She wanted to know exactly how Karen's operation worked. She pulled out a second folder. This contains financial records, property transactions, and a list of every official who's been involved in Karen's schemes over the past 5 years." Marcus stared at the evidence, feeling hope for the first time in weeks. "Sarah, this could change everything." "I hope so. My grandparents spent 40 years building that garden. Karen destroyed it in 3 months, and then they had to watch her install the same type of roses in her own yard." Sarah's voice broke slightly. They died thinking she'd won. That evening, Marcus and Detective Santos reviewed Sarah's grandmother's evidence. It was